1900, Smallville, Kansas. A sky portal inexplicably opens at an altitude of 2,000 feet above the ground. As legends go, a con artist magician accidentally gets sucked into the hole using his hot air balloon, and this man gets isekai to the magical land of Oz. Through his deception and stage magic, he rises to the most powerful political rank of Grand Wizard, the therefore Wizard of Oz. He is then embroiled in a territorial war against other magic users that reaches a bloody stalemate for the next 39 years until a young girl, ironically named Dorothy Gale, manages to also reach the sky portal after being flung into it by an F5 tornado. She lands in Oz with her house, immediately killing one of the two wicked witches devastating the land, and then quickly leads an offensive to immediately attack and kill the other witch, who she actually manages to one-shot with a lethal bucket of water. However, despite all this, a few months later, Chancellor Adolf Hitler of Germany would invade and annex the sovereign nation of Poland, plunging the world forever into the horror of World War II. Hey everybody, it's me, Buster Green. I've been off YouTube for a week. I went to New York City and I caught the New York City salmon stomach flu virus. Yeah, that's been rough. It really messed me up this time. It's messed me up so bad that the past 2 days have been Thanksgiving and I haven't been able to eat any form of turkey at all this year because I just don't think my stomach could handle it. My job's also been surprisingly intense leading up to the holidays, and I haven't seen any good movies lately. I don't know, I wanted to sit down and watch New York Ninja, but no one wanted to do that with me, so I went to the movie theater, and playing at the movie theater this week was a real selection of sucker loser movies. I don't know, everything playing this week was kind of destined to suck for some reason or another, but with all those bad options ahead of me, I decided to sit down and go see Wicked. I'm not familiar with the musical, and I knew it was some weird prequel reverso of the Wizard of Oz, but I don't know, people were saying it was good, but it was too long, and therefore I hate it for being too long. I guess I liked aspects of it, but I was never going to love this movie. I have a big issue with musicals that I'm trying to figure out here. I like live music. Live music is great, and I like stage plays. I like seeing actors act, but when it comes to musicals, there's definitely a handful of things that strike me the wrong way. Now, I don't hate every musical. There's definitely some musicals I liked, like Tokyo Tribe. That's the best Japanese musical, and I don't know, that one South Park one about Canada. I don't know, I can stand certain kids' musicals too, but I do have a real disdain for most of the beloved Disney musicals, as they are called, because I don't know, I reject those strongly. I feel like they have songs that border on brainwashing, and it feels like an intense violation when they're just singing about stupid commercial shit like most of the Disney movies do. Now, Wicked didn't do that, but throughout the music there was a hell of a lot of tedious stupidity and slow redundancy, and getting deep into it. When it comes to Broadway musicals, I think there's just too many songs that are just a long definition of a person's feelings at a particular moment, and that totally doesn't work for me. One or two of those are fine, but if that's the whole thing for 4 hours, then that's fucking boring, and that's just description without action, and it's a waste of time in my opinion. Another big issue I have with musicals is they have this sort of built-in obnoxious quality. Someone singing in your face, looking right at you, trying to express their soul. And yeah, Wicked seems almost self-aware of that problem, and they try to diffuse it by making Ariana Grande's Galinda character just the most completely obnoxious character ever put to film. So yeah, they solved the blatant built-in obnoxiousness of musical theater by creating a blatant built-in obnoxious character within to propel it through. A stroke of real genius there. Now, the redundancy and the obnoxiousness combines together into this 4-hour slog of a film called Wicked, which climaxes in this long-ass fucking ending where the Wicked Witch of the West asks Ariana Grande to jump out of a window with her. But it takes 5 fucking minutes to do that because they have to sing and dance about it and jump back and forth instead of just jumping out the fucking window already. And I was like, God damn it, Ariana, just jump out the fucking window already so this crazy bitch will shut up. Now, I'm not a fan of the musical theater experience because there's just this distinct dishonesty to it, and I feel like when this movie sticks to trying to recreate that theatrical experience, the movie is at its absolute worst. Now, at the sake of infringing on reality, though, as otherwise this is a period piece set in an isekai world set in the 1920s, I feel like they're also kind of missing a step because all the music is modern, very like 80s, 90s pop, and like that wouldn't exist in the 1920s. I thought maybe they'd have like more like a period accurate piece. I don't know, throw in like some saxophones, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like when musical theater is done badly, you're just looking at a bunch of people singing at you inside a big box, and they're singing up in your face being obnoxious, and it's convoluted, and they're singing about very simple principles, and 80% of Wicked is just totally this. Now, where it breaks away from it decently in the beginning, it almost turns into a real movie, and it does that in the end too, but for a good chunk of the middle, you just got a bunch of people in a big boxy room singing straightforward, looking right at nothing, not making eye contact with you because you're in a movie theater, but still making eye contact with no one. And yeah, it's dumb. There's like a few scenes where they're singing in their bedroom. That's a little bit better. There's also one song that they specifically sing in a round room just to show it's not a square. It's so round, and there's weird, dangerous spinning wheels in the round room. Anyway, yeah, and the main interest walks on a bunch of library books just to kind of iff me off. Don't walk on books. That's just, it's disrespectful to the book. Anyway, if I had to be nice to this movie, like, the only praise I can have is that the actors were good. You can't fault the actors. They did their job. They did their job right. Probably the thing I like the most about the movie is that the movie delved into the overall fucked up weirdness of the Land of Oz's political situation and the bizarre fact that Oz is established to have a real and powerful wicked witch who dies if she ever gets wet, a good witch who never does anything great, and a grand ruling wizard who is actually a Kansas City flim-flam man who got isekai'd here priorly through a magic sky portal, and now rules over the land with an iron fist, and in this generation, a giant robot head. So anyway, I'm gonna just skip recapping this movie because honestly, not a lot happens to it. Like, there's two girls, they go to college. I thought it was gonna be like a Hogwarts-style magic school with like all these magical things, but nah, it's not. There's actually only like 3 people there who can even use magic, so it's really just like maybe like a really nice community college, and then they randomly leave to see the Wizard of Oz once enough time has elapsed. So yeah, the film starts on this basic status quo of, oh, the Wizard of Oz is over and the witch is dead, and Dorothy threw water at her and one-shot KO'd her. Now, this has never made sense. I've never really thought that deeply about it before, but seemingly the movie is encouraging you to think more deeply on it while not doing anything really to make that any more realistic. Now look, the only time I saw The Wizard of Oz, I was like 5 years old, and I thought like the end of that story was just saying that the Wicked Witch died because she was so fucking dirty that if you got her wet, if you got her clean, she would die of being clean. Like, the witch was so dirty, you could literally clean her to death with soap and water because she was like just like made a microorganism, like a living virus or something. But yeah, the movie doesn't make it clear why she will die this way or how, but yeah, I guess she bathes. They never show her bathing, so I guess the jury's still out if she never bathes. But the movie does show her gleefully skipping near a pond, so maybe the water weakness is some sort of later acquired handicap. Anyway, yeah, back to the start of the movie. The movie starts by reintroducing us to Ariana Grande as Galinda, the Good Witch, who might be the first anti-villain in history. She's like explicitly framed to be the film's villain on like mostly the basis of fuck her, she's rich, she's inconsiderate, she's white. Even though Ariana Grande, as we all know, can be whatever the fuck race she wants to be this week, but she has this constant, obnoxious, unlikable energy in this movie, and I guarantee a lot of her fans will watch this movie and think that she was the hero just because they like her. So yeah, anti-villain. It was at least cute when she like swam on the floor like she was swimming. Anyway, another thing that drove me nuts about this movie, and I can't tell what it is, but there's constant minor vocabulary words in this movie that are just wrong. I can't tell if it's like some cute thing the actors are doing just because they're singing, or they're just doing it to sound weird, or it's like the local Oz dialect. It honestly reminds me a lot of the Rugrats in the show Rugrats, just saying words wrong because they were uneducated babies. But these people aren't babies, and it's super not charming. My worst concern is that this film will be so popular that this will just turn into a trend and people will just start talking dumber and dumber for this day going forward. Thanks, multi-million-dollar film. You just destroyed the English language for generations to come. Hey! Anyway, so yeah, the film serves as like a deaf biography as Elphaba Frop, the Wicked Witch of the West, and recounts her sad life story as a green mutant outsider who developed into the Wicked Witch of the West. And then, yeah, they get into some weird places. Like, they get into some crazy crap about how the witch was born. And that, for me, was the most scandalous part of the film because her father was a governor and her mother was a very bad person. And then her actual father was the Zoot Suit Riot guy or something. Anyway, the implication here is that she became a witch because she was a creation of adultery mixed with magical green alcohol. Like, her skin is green because she has some weird green fetal alcohol poisoning or something. Is that what you guys read into that scene? Because that's really dark. Anyway, I kind of thought they'd get more into that because later Elphaba brings the magic bottle back and like expresses that she collected it. Anyway, yeah, the green skin is treated as a curse throughout her life, and then it becomes like a metaphor for racism, and then she's like even like deep down like wanting like maybe if she wasn't green, like maybe her life would be easier. But eventually she comes to accept it because fuck everyone else. And it's framed as extra tragic because Oz was supposedly otherwise completely free of racism until this one green girl came along. You know, it ain't easy being green. But anyway, so then there's this other major subplot about like talking animals that used to be like living high in this land. But then a major point of the film is that like they're being wiped out and holocausted. The film doesn't really get there in part one, but yeah, the talking animal holocaust is a thing that this movie brings up. And yeah, so Elfie was raised by a talking bear, and so she grows to love all the talking animals. And yeah, then all the major talking animals here made me think that like any second Scooby-Doo was going to show up in the story because like maybe this is his home planet. But then it turns out that yeah, the Wizard of Oz is actually like fucking Hitler, and he's trying to like holocaust all these talking animals for really no particular good reason, just to reunite society around like a common enemy because like animals, I guess. But that's kind of nuts because the society seems like it's set up around these animals. It seems like it uses like fucking Flintstones logic where like if they get rid of like all the fucking talking like toucans, like now no one has can openers. And also, holy shit. Okay, so they turned the Wizard of Oz into Hitler, and that's like a fucking wild take to make. And I gotta really like boil that down because the original Wizard of Oz film came out like in 1939, right before Hitler like fucking annexed Poland, 2 years before the day that would live in infamy, the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And if my context is right, I guess it's not impossible for the Wizard of Oz to be an old-fashioned Midwestern racist, but damn, that is such a wild take for this movie to make. But so yeah, the Wizard of Oz has always been this kind of weird character. He's like this powerless isekai protagonist who rules over a magical world with his lies and deceptions, and the general fact that he's got it all figured out because he's a snazzy modern person from like the city. And this movie does honestly confront the bizarre situation that is for what it is. And so yeah, backing up to what the fuck is going on here, I hated the movie for being a musical and the poorly done musical aspects that are intrinsically based into all musicals, but I can at least respect the long social political story they're stirring up in this movie, and that at least makes it not a total loss that I sat through a 4-hour long, very boring chick flick. So yeah, the Wizard of Oz gets isekai to Oz, and just by being the isekai protagonist male, and also being a liar, takes over the world, a world that was seemingly previously pure and innocent, and he was able to take it over by lying about this prophecy that he was the chosen one who could read their magic book. And he's just bullshitting because no one can read the book and no one's smart enough to call him out on his shit. But Elphaba, by all accounts, is the true chosen one, the true Messiah come along to fulfill prophecy, who can actually read the book and can do all the magic. And there is some additional implication here that her green skin is an indication of her birthright to rule over the Emerald City. And when you break that down, yeah, these movies are a twofold tragedy. If there had been no wizard, Elfie would have been able to theoretically just become the wizard and get every good thing he has for herself, and her life would have been completely alright. She would have established a goddamn utopia. She would have been a queen amongst queens, ruling wisely for years to come. But instead, the wizard took over, tried to install her in a puppet position, and when she rejected that puppet position, he paints her as an enemy of the state, replacing his animal holocaust scheme. And Wicked, by all accounts, is some weird, crazy, inverted Messiah story about how Elfie's role came into that, until, of course, she conveniently runs into Dorothy and her entourage, who murder her sister, who the film paints as this adorable crippled girl who will surely die a horrible death when fucking Dorothy slams a fucking house into her. And if this setup is carried out My fucking God, Dorothy Gale is just like going to be the fucking Antichrist of this story. But on top of that, it's possibly also an apocalypse story because they're setting up that this entire Isekai universe is depending on Elphaba to be the avatar and to balance the elements. And now Dorothy's just going to fucking come along and murder her. And yeah, so this whole like Isekai universe is going to be murdered by two entitled Americans trespassing in their land and then conquering and murdering its most important inhabitants. Honestly, this does raise some even crazier questions about what happens to the land of Oz after Dorothy and the wizard wreak havoc on it. Galinda seems incompetent and aloof and not actually capable of anything. And if the wizard still holds on to power, if he doesn't have sycophants like Mulan coming along to like continue his fucked up status quo of being a Nazi, some versions of the story end with the wizard seeing the error of his ways and leaving alongside of Dorothy. But it seems like Elfie's status as being the avatar, as being the magical messiah, as trying to keep the peace between the humans and the animals, I feel like that's just driven to fail because she can't do that because she's just like, you know, the villain in the story ultimately. So yeah, I don't know what the fuck they're doing for part 2. I was thinking part 2 was just going to be straight up the Wizard of Oz story, which I want to see. I want to see how Dorothy fucking kills this bitch. But anyway, apparently, actually, the play is really that fucking long, and there is a whole second section that they weren't able to fit into this whole Wicked Witch origin story, which for me felt pretty like a complete self-contained story. So I don't know what the fuck they're doing next. Anyway, Bone Yang was a fun token gay character, and this is probably the best movie playing this week, so knock yourself out. All right, Wicked was a movie that has way too much singing about tedious, stupid stuff. Good night. I'm out.